The award-winning It's Movie Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to the shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
I'm Hope Madden.
This is It's Movie Time. And Hope, you know, we try to review the best movies we can.
We do.
What are we doing reviewing the worst movie ever made?
It's a good movie about a bad movie, and that's our technicality.
It's called The Disaster Artist. Set it up, Hope.
So, if you haven't seen The Room, the Tommy Wiseau film from the early 2000s, first of all, you must. And it is the most enjoyably terrible movie that was ever made. And it's a fascinating story about how it got made. And James Franco is directing a film that tells you how this movie got made.
And he's playing Wiseau.
Mm-hmm.
A really fine performance, I think. You know, it used to be that Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space was alleged to be the worst movie ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And this one seems to be taking over. Now, locally, you can see The Room frequently at the Drexel.
Once a month.
Once a month, it is. Okay, yeah, midnight, something, yeah.
And that might seem late, but it is definitely a movie that's worth watching with a crowd of people. In that sort of Rocky Horror tradition, it really, truly is.
But Rocky Horror looks indeed like a first-rate film next to this. I mean, this is just so badly acted, so atrociously written, and then produced.
You know, one of the things, I see a lot of bad movies, we see a lot of bad movies. One of the things that sets the film The Room apart is bad movies are, for the most part, the killer is when they're boring. And they mostly are boring. And boy, The Room is never boring, not for 1 second. And I think part of it is because it is so insane. The writing is terrible, but it's not terrible in any way that you are going to recognize. You just think, what? What? And that's what I think is so much fun about The Disaster Artist, is that they really embrace that everybody involved, cast, crew, everybody was like, what?
We have cameos from, it seems like, a dozen stars. From Bryan Cranston.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Alison Brie's got a small part.
That's right.
Seth Rogen. Yeah, you're going to know almost everybody who's in it.
And none of it is intrusive because everybody is having fun.
Yes.
And mostly James Franco and his brother Dave, who plays Sestro, his buddy.
Greg.
Yes.
Yeah,
right. Hi, Greg. And what I think is so important about how bad this is that it's a straightforward narrative about infidelity.
It's you know, it's funny because at one point one of the actresses in the film, within the film, points out that she feels like the whole movie The Room is in its own way metaphorically autobiographical, which I thought was a nice nod to the fact that there was something actually going on in Tommy Wiseau's head. But he is such a fascinating, enigmatic, bizarre figure, and he really towers over the whole movie.
There's an element in The Room that I find almost guaranteed its success. And that was the fact that Wiseau apparently had an endless fund behind him. So if you want to make a movie, as he did, desperately wanted to make it, he had no talent, but desperately wanted to make it, you can do it if you have unlimited funds. And so he could produce it. He could have an opening night. He could do everything you want. And until he realized that people were laughing at his film and at him, and that was a signature of success, I guess I'm just saying that was an important element. Plus, now for me, Hope, I question, as I did with Ed Wood, whether these guys don't really know how bad this is.
It is. It's an interesting question, and I think that in a lot of cases, not just in the really, really bad works, but I think a lot of people are kind of blind to their own artistic output.
Yes.
Whether it's good or whether it's bad, I think they probably don't really know.
Yes, yeah. And Franco picks up on the theme of following your dream. It seems a little trite, but in Tommy Wiseau's case, I think it's essential to him as a kind of well-meaning, dense guy who has a charisma about him that's very difficult to define. But he pursues that dream with the help of his money and with the help of Greg to bring out this film, which eventually becomes maybe the worst movie ever made. And so I keep coming back to the fact, well, Hope, what about the audience?
So this is what I was really curious about. I've been looking forward to The Disaster Artist since I first heard of it. But I wondered whether it'd be possible to enjoy or appreciate The Disaster Artist if you aren't familiar with the film The Room. And that is the obstacle I think that they do the best job of overcoming, because it is a fascinating and bizarre story, and it's a fun story, and it's very affectionately told. But at the same time, at the end of the film, they show side-by-side scenes from Tommy Wiseau's film and scenes from Franco's film to make you understand, if you haven't seen The Room, no, it was this bad. This is how bad it was. This is how gloriously terrible. And I think that helped to make it really work.
Would you go over that last part?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the film, they show scenes side by side from Tommy Wiseau's The Room and from Franco's film to give you a sense of exactly how bad The Room is, and that this is not a spoof of any kind, that it's really frame for frame. They do a great job of contextualizing it for you.
Yeah, and I worried even that Franco's depiction of Wiseau might be too slavish, but I thought Franco had a certain charm himself about it, some understanding of the sweetness and the drive of Tommy Wiseau.
And I thought too that that the brothers did a nice job of showing genuine affection.
Yes.
Right? I think that Greg was often embarrassed by Tommy's unusual behavior, but you can see such true caring about him as a man, which helped to explain why Greg the actor made some poor career decisions to support his friend.
There were, of the cameos, of course, we both love Seth Rogen, and he plays a kind of, what would you call him, an assistant director?
He was. He was an assistant director. They gave him a different name, but because Wiseau was in so many of the scenes, in almost every scene, that it was really Seth Rogen's character who did things like, say, cut, things like that.
And there's one moment. I mean, Tommy is so into it. He is virtually naked on top of his girlfriend. And he is going at it. And Rogen questions whether he actually knows where her vagina is. Because he's going after her up near her belly button.
Yeah. And, I think it's because he was convinced that you had to see his ass. And he didn't trust them to get it in the frame, so he put it high enough up in the frame that, because I remember the first time I watched The Room thinking to myself, what is he doing? Geographically, what's going on right there?
And I love it because Rogen gives it such a deadpan. It does. People are watching wide-eyed. Anyway, Hope Madden, the film is The Disaster Artist. It is about the making of the cult classic, The Room. Mm-hmm. What grade would you award it?
I think I would go B+.
Oh, darn. I don't know why I like you so much. It must be because you and I think alike. But it's exactly what I have awarded as a B+. And that's a B+ for the worst movie ever made.
That's right.
In fact, as it's called, the Citizen Kane of bad movies.
That's right.